repeat it again once you.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
We're live streaming now, so this meeting, the Public Defender Service Corporation is called to order, and I ask the secretary to please.
Chief Justice F. Philip Carbolito.
I am present and calling in from the Judicial Center.
Presiding Judge Alberto C. Lamarena III.
Present, calling from the Judicial Center.
Trustee Cynthia B. Q.
Present and in my law office in Agana, Guam.
Trustee Donna Muña Canata.
Present, and I'm in my office at East Agana, Guam Auto Spot.
Guam Bar President Jackie T. Terlahi.
Today, present, so calling in from Agana.
Thank you, members. The secretary has confirmed that we have a quorum and we're able to conduct the business at hand. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of February 23rd, 2021. Is there a motion to adopt?
Motioned.
Motion made by Trustee Kanata,
I'll second it.
and it's been seconded by our board member Cynthia Ekaby. Any discussion on the adoption of the minutes? There being none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? It's been unanimously adopted and the minutes are approved. The first item under all business is the financial status update regarding the allotment releases of our respective corporations, and I recognize Mr. Mike Moreno.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, members of the board. For Public Defender Service Corporation and the Alternate Public Defender, we have just received our second allotment on March 19th, and we are complete as of March. We are at 93% for Public Defender and 92% for Alternate Public Defender. For the domestic violence program, we are still using the stock 2019.
How come I'm not getting any audio, video?
Yeah, PJ, it shows that you have 2 logins, and so you may want to log out on one. One has turned off.
Okay, how to do that? I will, thank you.
Okay, we can hear you loud and clear.
Have I logged out of the other one? How did you do that?
Are you able to hear us, PJ?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
All right, okay. All right, so Mr. Moreno, you can continue.
Okay, let me just repeat what I said earlier. We received our second allotment for March, and we are complete for March. And the Public Defender Service Corporation is at 93%, and the Alternate Public Defender is at 92%. For the domestic violence program, we are still using the funding from stock 2019, and which will carry us through June 2021. The proposed funding for stock 2020 is still a work in progress, and we are continuing to communicate with the governor's office regarding this. And that is all for financials.
So Mike, when you say that for the domestic violence program that it continues to be a work in progress, what is the feedback that you're getting, if any, in reference to the approval of the FY 2022 grant?
Okay, for the stock 2020, we have just submitted our proposal in our RFP, and we're pending approval from the governor's office.
So how long has that been pending?
We had started probably, I believe it was last month, end of last month, and we're still working on this.
All right, okay. All right, well, we have a couple of months, and so
yes, sir.
we need to follow up. We don't want any lapse in any of the funding stream.
Understood.
Any questions for Mr. Moreno? There being none, the next item on the agenda is the report from Mr. Hattori, our Executive Director of the corporation. Steve, you are recognized.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board. So we did provide our caseload stats as part of the agenda. I know that we also provided our cumulative total. And so the numbers seem to be pretty low, but it's tracking what it has been tracking during the entire pandemic. And so, I mean, the thing's pretty self-explanatory, explains what types of cases they received, whether they're felonies, misdemeanors, and juveniles. And we added our total active case as of March 18, 2021. And so it looks like we have about 2,000 prejudgment cases that are still needing to be resolved. Of those, about 690 are bench warrants. And we have about 3,000 post-judgment cases. You know, Guam's kind of unique. In most other jurisdictions, the public defenders get out once a judgment is issued, but we stay on the case to help our clients, you know, hopefully succeed while they're on probation. And so basically, those are our numbers. It goes through December, and I've ran I guess for the second quarter, we're about at 172 cases, 172 cases. And so we still have, you know, we're a couple weeks shy of completing the second quarter. So we'll provide that at the next one. The other couple things we were working on, Uptrust, it's basically a text messaging service that is integrated with our case management system. We're working through the kinks on that. But I've talked to many clients who've received notifications about court hearings and appointments through Uptrust, so I know that it's getting out to our clients. We just need to fix some of the messages we give them. So we're hoping that it'll help clients show up more for court and for appointments. Another issue that came up recently is PayTel. At some point, PayTel was DOC was not allowing our clients, our indigent clients, to contact our office, and so they were trying to have them use their own money to call their lawyer. And so we told them we're not going to allow our clients to do that, right? They're indigent, especially since they've not allowed visitation for over a year. We believe they should, you know, spend their PayTel money staying in contact with their family. In any event, they did a flat rate fee. Well, I guess for 2 months, right, we allowed collect calls. They didn't charge us for it, and they estimate, Kathy, right, about $400 a month. And so we're gonna either make that part of our budget request, or we're gonna ask the legislature for, you know, I think we've identified a funding source. Apparently, PayTel pays the general fund a commission for the contract. We're not sure how much that amount is, but hopefully it'll be around what it costs to pay for the collect calls of our indigent confined clients. And so that's something we'll work with the speaker with, because she's also chair of our committee. Right, Kat, did they ever say how much they sent to the general fund for as part of the commission?
DOC said they don't know. They don't even see the money. So in our correspondence with DOC and the PayTel reps on Guam, we've always copied the speaker in on that email. So we just need to organize a meeting with Speaker Therese Terlahi to see if she knows where that money goes to, and so that we could see if that could be used for our clients.
Okay. And then we also submitted a BJA grant application. I know Kat Moylan has more information about that, but hopefully it'll pay for technology upgrades to allow us to expand the capability to meet our clients through Zoom and other video conferencing methods. Kathy, do you have a quick update on that?
We submitted the proposal to BSP, and so we're just pending their approval. But we call it our Access to Counsel program, just to allow our clients to communicate more effectively with our attorneys. And so it proposes to provide devices both at DYA as well as at DOC. And if approved, we're hoping to obviously use it with the your sister partner, but also with the private attorney panel.
That's about it. We're also still looking to hire attorneys. We lost one attorney, and so we have a position we're hoping to fill. Okay, and that's about it for
So do
PSC.
any of the trustees have any questions for Mr. Hattori? Steve, I have a few questions in order for this data to be more meaningful to me. I think we need to modify the report, and I'm more interested in cases, compared from one quarter to from the previous year quarter, 1 year cumulative from the previous year cumulative, and case processing. And you give us how many cases are coming in. You don't give us any data, or at least I don't see data in reference to how many cases are being disposed. And so we know what the caseload of each lawyer is in reference to active cases. And I think this is also helpful and necessary when, especially now that we're going into the budget requests with the legislature, and we'll get to it, but there's a request to add one additional lawyer position, as I understand the presentation. And so with this data, how does, you mentioned that the case load was low at the outset. It was low compared to what?
Okay, so historically, so we could provide those stats.
I think you should make it routine and modify these the data that you provide, because it really doesn't tell us anything other than just cumulative numbers, but it doesn't show us how hard our assistant public defenders are working to process the cases.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. And we could generate a report that shows how many cases went from pre to post in a particular period. So that's something we could do for our case management system. There is one, I guess one of the slides that show what their active cases are, and it ranges, I mean, anywhere, but we have about 1,187 active cases excluding bench warrants. So with bench warrants, it's probably close to, I thought, maybe 1,800 or.
Do you break it down by lawyer to show how many cases they started with at the beginning of the year, how many cases they ended up at the end of the year, in terms of how many new cases they added as opposed to how many cases they disposed of? That way, it really tells us,
Okay.
the work of each individual lawyer. Because I noticed that the caseload for the lawyers can be quite drastic. Some are handling 50% more than other attorneys.
Yeah. So if you look at page 10 of the packet, that shows what the current prejudgment caseload is for each attorney.
Right. I see that.
And so. But the reason there's a great variety is because of the I mean, the different types of courtrooms. It appears like the family violence courtroom, the attorneys in that courtroom are not able to resolve their cases as quickly as, say, the attorneys in, say, the presiding judge's courtroom.
So I know it's not easy to do case load work in terms of having it weighted, but I assume that the lawyers are satisfied with their assignments, and one doesn't see he or she as handling a lot higher caseload than the other, and that the lawyers feel that it's equitably distributed?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really had any complaints. Quite frankly, this is like the smallest caseload per attorney in the history of the office, I would suggest. Just because we have 16 attorneys now, and and with the time standards, there really is no reason to keep a case alive beyond a year. So we're seeing that everyone's caseload is smaller than the number of cases they receive in a year. But we could provide those stats.
Okay, maybe going forward, we can modify that so these figures can give us a better picture in reference to the activity of our assistant public defenders and the handling of the caseloads. All right, if there's no other question in relation to the report from Mr. Hattori, we'll ask our managing attorney, Annie Gale, to present her report.
Hi, Your Honor. Our report starts on page 14 and 15. We have our stats. Pretrial cases, we have 447. And then for the first quarter on page 15, we have 77 cases. These are low numbers, Your Honor, but I understand where you're coming from in terms of wanting to have a little bit more background of first quarter last year versus first quarter this year, or those types of breakdowns. So we'll have that for you after the next board meeting. I didn't realize that is what you would like to see. So we could have that for you as well. And Mr. Hattori is correct. Some of the cases, if a lawyer has more cases, sometimes it's because either they're juvenile cases, which we have a lot of, and then one lawyer, mostly Miss Flynn in our office, carries the juvenile proceedings. But the family violence caseload is pretty high, and they're very hard to, for some reason, hard to dispose of quickly compared to other cases. If there's any other questions, that's just, we hadn't turned that in prior to any questions on our caseload, Your Honor?
My comments would, as you responded to it, be the same. But maybe going forward, we can have those comparisons.
Okay. If there is something specific that I can understand. But if there's anything specific, I can ask you separately, Your Honor, to see what kind of what you would like specifically to be notated. Okay.
Mostly, I mean, it's very simple. It's case processing in reference to determining backlogs, and each individual attorney's handling of their caseload from a certain interval period, in terms of how many cases that comes in that he or she is handling, as opposed to how many cases are disposed of. So we know that the cases are being processed.
Okay.
I think ultimately that's what we all want to see, is the cases moving forward. We know that cases are going to come in, but I think, and if they're not being processed in a reasonable time period, then we can ask questions. Is it the court? Is it the court that is not moving these cases forward? And where is it that we can identify if the cases are not being timely processed?
Okay, thank you. We'll do that, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask an additional request?
Yes, DJ, please.
Because I like to know which attorneys are asserting speedy trials. That should be noted in the report. Huh? Is it certain attorneys or all the attorneys and public defender APD? Yeah?
All right, if you can include that in your reports, starting with the next meeting, and hopefully we have that, you have that data in your case management system. Any other
Okay.
questions? Any questions for our managing attorney? Thank you, Annie.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to mute myself.
So the next item under our all business is the Elder Justice Center, and if we can get a status report on our Elder Justice Center.
And you have our number. Good afternoon, Your Honors and board members. We are happy to report the Elder Justice Center is now operating. We're here at the Castle Mall.
We have a little lag in whoever is that.
I think it's Kathleen. You seem to have an echo. Huh?
Yeah, there's
An echo. Let me take off the headphones. Let me see if this will work. Is this better?
Correct. Yeah, it's better.
Okay. Okay. I apologize. We just have that's my goal. We have our staff communicating with our seniors, Ms. Stacy, and so I hope this will be okay. So good afternoon again. We're happy to report our Elder Justice Center is now operating. We're here at Castle Mall in Manila. And our thanks to the Division of Senior Citizens for the office space, the equipment, and all the support as we transitioned here. Our staff again is David Highsmith, Stacy Cruz, and myself. Jean Cordero, as well as Kat Seguenza, will be joining us next week. We are focused on contacting our seniors on the wait list. The wait list again is at 241. Miss Stacy has been incredible at contacting our seniors. She is now at 100. For those who are not on the wait list, we are providing information regarding the program to include referrals to the Guam Bar Association Lawyer Referral Service, as well as other entities who may be able to help them. Their names are also added to the wait list if they're not already there. We are communicating with the Division of Senior Citizens and working with Ms. St. Nicholas, who's actually also here on Zoom with us, on how to safely meet our seniors in person in order to execute the documents. For purposes of training and outreach, we conducted 2 presentations with the Guam Micronesia Geriatrics Workforce Enhancement Program. This was on February 24th and 27th. We were able to speak about the Elder Justice Center program. We do have another series of webinars scheduled for March 31st and April 8th. The March 31st presentation will be for the Micronesian communities here on island as well as off island, and our April 8th presentation is open to the general public. We are working on establishing our advisory council. And finally, for purposes of our official opening, we are working with the Division of Senior Citizens to combine our official opening with the proclamation signing commemorating Senior Citizens Month. Also, our office is working with the Division of Senior Citizens to participate in a webinar series as part of its annual conference on aging. And so that's a brief summary, Your Honors and board members, on the status of the program.
So any of the board members have any questions for Kathleen?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask maybe an information for information purposes. Do the same report as Steve and Annie did as far as your statistics. How many people have gone through the system? What type of categories, like did you do power of attorneys, etc.? How many cases were filed as civil TROs? Something like that, so that at least we know, how many people are being serviced by this program.
Yes, I also have the same interest. Kathleen, just for our information, because of the social distancing limitations, how has the clients, how are they being serviced in terms of, I know it's just been newly open, but with limitations in in-person contact, how has the service how is it being provided to the elderly clients?
So, Your Honor, we are communicating with them via phone. And so it's been working pretty well. We are working now with Miss Charlene to really talk about how we're going to meet them in person. We were just talking earlier today about some of the restrictions, and they're very detailed in terms of the amount of time that we should be meeting with our seniors in person. And Charlene is here, and so I think it's going to take a little longer. There were some indications that that we should limit our in-person contact with our seniors to 15 minutes. So logistically, we're going to have to really work with our seniors and just work with them patiently so we can do this safely. But Your Honor, going back to your question, yes, we're doing it by phone. We're hoping to do it by Zoom, but it seems like the seniors are more comfortable with the phone. And so that's how we've been communicating with them.
Okay. Charlene, you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I can go ahead and add, and thank you, Kathleen, for bringing that up in terms of going with the social distancing. So we also have been going up to the CDC website, so their latest guidance on gatherings. I did provide to Kathleen, and just for those who are listening, risk factors again is a concern. So just bringing that out so that those who are on the board and part of the Zoom can be aware that even on the CDC, indoor events, especially in most places with poor ventilation, pose more risk than outdoor events. Some other areas include events that last longer pose more risk than shorter events. Being within 6 feet of someone who has COVID-19 for a total of 15 minutes or more increases the risk of becoming infected. We are also reaching out with, of course, we're under public health, and so that we can ensure the safety of those for those in-person visits, to ensure that we limit. So we want you to also be aware, not just here, but also from our grantor. They also have provided us communication that the principle of safety first for our customers and aging network staff, as does the recommendation to follow CDC and local health department guidance. It is very much present.
Charlene, that being said, and because of the restrictions, of the CDC restriction, maybe we should consider looking into having interview rooms with Zoom capabilities set up where our elderly clients can be in a secured room without having been in person, but being able to see who is it that is interviewing them by providing the facility to allow that to happen. I don't know what the setup is there where you're at, but if there can be some type of interview room that is properly set up where you don't have the in-person concerns, but at the same time having the senior resident feeling comfortable that they're speaking to an individual rather than just over the phone. That's one. And number two, I mean, if our senior citizens are vaccinated, which we hope, most of them are, and our personnel are also vaccinated, that can be taken into account in reference to how this meeting. We want to, as much as possible, make it comfortable and as easy as possible for the clientele that we are servicing through our Elderly Law Center. And I think that would be a worthwhile investment for us to make them feel comfortable, but doing it in a visual manner. They may be able to communicate better when they're able to see who they're speaking to. Just something to think about in reference to us trying to improve the services we provide to this clientele. Any questions for our Elder Law Center representatives?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions. The first question is, with the senior citizen centers now closed because of the COVID restrictions, what outreach program have you done so that these individuals know how to contact you as far as getting services from this program? Charlene or Kathleen can answer that.
I can go ahead. I know that Kathleen mentioned the outreach that she's done with the geriatric program. And some of the participants of the geriatric program include our representatives overseeing the senior center operations, which is the 12 senior citizen centers, the 3 adult daycare centers. It also includes our contracted case management program, and our national family caregiver support program. And on the aging network side, these individuals are there so as they're aware of these resources. If any of our seniors call, let's say a senior center, even though it's closed, case management for any type of access, those are areas in which the legal assistance will then be communicated in terms of referral for services. So our network goes that broad in terms of linkages. So if a senior calls in saying that they need legal and they may only be a center participant, that can be fed directly from the senior center up to legal assistance elder justice center or through case management and then filtered through the legal assistance services.
Okay, as you know that not every senior citizen is involved in the senior citizen centers, right? So do we have any public service announcements that we can use using the radio and TV and probably Facebook if they have technological skills, so that they're aware of these services, so that every senior citizen that qualifies for this program knows where to go to utilize it in case they need some assistance or help. Is there any like a public service announcement that we can use?
We can prepare on the division side in partnership with the Elder Justice Center a press release to make that information available. I know our division does not have a Facebook. We do have a aging and disability software and services. It's a web-based program. So that press release can also be put on there. So those are just 2 things I can at least speak of in terms of getting the message out.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm thinking more of like maybe you and Kathleen and Charlene go on these talk shows to inform people that this program is available for senior citizens. You know, I'm very serious because a lot of people listen to these talk shows, and they get that information, the talk shows, and then independent public service announcements. I know that many of these radio stations and TV stations are obligated to do PSAs for free if we're qualified to do these public service announcements. So I'm thinking maybe working closely with K57 or something, not K57, KGTF, making some public service announcements either to the radio and TV that these services are available for our senior citizens, so that they are aware of it, so that you know, we can inform almost everybody. I think this is very important because many of these senior citizens, you know, require some of these services. But you know, many of them we have to consider that many of them are isolated, and especially now with COVID-19, many more are just as isolated from the public because of the danger of contracting the disease, the virus. So we should make it an outreach program, you know, talk show, go, you know, you or Kathleen or both of you go on the talk show, KUAM, K57, you know, go to the KMTV News or whatever, because these are all free, and talk about the program and that these services are available for our senior citizens, and to contact you if you need these services. And PSA announcements, you know, I think there are things that we can use that don't cost us anything, so that we can inform the public, that especially our citizens public, which are not as open, are not as outward going as the younger folk, so that they can inform of these services. Because right now, I think we're not in contact with a significant portion of our population. That's my suggestion. Huh?
Yes, and you know, presiding, that's a great idea. And I have to apologize. So I told them, like, let's just focus on the wait list, but I think we can do both at the same time. So as we push towards the grand opening, we would definitely make a big media blitz, right, Kat? Kat Gogui has a lot of experience with GVB and KGTF, so we'll get the word out for sure.
You know, I joined the presiding judge in his comments. I know we are just getting off the ground and starting, and we seem to be bombarding our staff with all this excitement and enthusiasm. But you know, Charlene, we have a 6-month pilot program, and we have every interest to make this successful, so we can see it on a permanent basis, provided that the funding continues to be there. And so once now that you know we've pretty much gotten off the ground, and it seems that Kathleen is in very comfortable offices, that you know us being aggressive, and the PJ's right in terms of these media outlets. They are very good community partners in worthwhile efforts in public service such as this program, and I think you'll find a receptive audience in trying to support and help the program, and so that outreach, I think, we should try and aggressively pursue. Any other comments?
Your Honors, I know that we talked about doing press releases. We will have that grand opening in May, but in the interim, we've been doing outreaches with various Manamco or senior citizen organizations. So the word is getting out. We, as the executive director did mention, we really are trying to tackle that wait list that has been sitting for a couple of years. So that takes a lot of that's the bulk of our work right now. But we continue to do outreaches based on the MOU with public health.
All right. Thank you. If there are no other comments in relation to this item on the agenda, we'll move to the next item, and that's the BJA's initiative. And any update on that, Mr. Ottori?
So, Your Honor, could we just table that till the April 27 meeting? I know
Yes.
we have our budgets to discuss it. I don't want to, that might take a while.
All right. Okay, we will do that. So we'll move to under new business now, and we'll start with the corporation's FY22 budget request. And I think a good way of us discussing this are the footnotes are excellent summaries of the changes, and so we may want to focus on that information as we proceed in seeing the difference between this budget and last year's budget. Go ahead. Either who's going to present, Mr. Steve or Kathy?
Okay, Your Honor, for public defender, focusing on the footnotes and the budget summaries we did provide for you for the board. We've got 2 budget summaries. One is based on what was actually authorized by the legislature in terms of our budget, which is on page 19. And then the other budget summary on page 22, you don't need to turn to those, JT. The board members have copies of this, but the other budget summary on page 22 is includes the lapse funds, which was authorized in our FY 2021 budget that is a part of APD's lapse funds. Both APD and public defender are able to use lapse funds. Whoever needs it at the end of FY 2021 are able to use the FY 2020 lapse funds from APD that should have gone to judiciary. The legislature at the FY 2021 budget hearing that we all attended via Zoom, they knew we were short for our FY 2021 budget. So they allowed both APD and public defender to use the excess of $299,675. So what we'll be recommending to the board is that we use the differences of BD1 on page 19 to submit to, I'm sorry, on page 22 that will be submitted to the board. So highlighting the footnotes in personnel, the only thing that we are requesting for is organic growth. You know, if they don't take away the increments or the increments, and we also included current bonuses, if they don't take that away, we're asking $399,589.
Kathy,
You're fading
Kathy,
out.
you seem to be fading away. I agree with the CJ.
Yeah, you,
So on page 20 of the footnotes, we are looking at 399, 589. That's just organic growth for the team we have. In terms of personnel, we're not asking for any additional personnel staff. The only position that you do see is one additional attorney for step 3, should there be an 8th judge. So if there's no 8th judge, if judiciary isn't going to ask for an 8th judge, we will not need that position.
yeah, I'm a little confused here now. You have 2 footnotes, and one you have total personnel costs of 399, 589, and then the other footnote you have a total personnel of 693, 465. So what's the difference? You use lapses from prior years to reduce the to add to the revenue available, but the same level of expense going forward? I'm a little confused.
Same level of expense. So we
Yeah.
had provided page 17 and 18. Should we go with what was authorized by the legislature? But I really suggest that we go with page 20 and 21, and we are including what we were short for personnel costs based on what's available and with lapsed funds. So what we're looking at is.
But Kathy, the lapses is actual realized lapses from the 2019 fiscal year or projected lapses?
2020.
So it's actual realized lapses from FY 2020?
Yes, that was authorized by the legislature for 2021.
For 2021, and okay, so this budget is 2022. Okay, I got it.
Yeah,
So the 2020 is a fixed sum, and what is that amount that you're adding to your revenue to reduce the?
299, 675.
299, 695. All right, and so this, and so the only new position, as you say, is the new attorney 1 position. This is an added attorney position. Is that correct, Steve?
That's correct. It's an attorney for step 3, should there be an 8th judge. That's the only position we're asking for.
Yeah, and at this point in time, the Judicial Council hasn't met to determine whether or not that is going to be included. We are still in a process of putting together our budget presentation to the Judicial Council. So if that's the contingency, then we'll leave it in, because we may very well. It depends on how the council views our current caseload. The only thing that, and I think those were some of the foundational questions that I asked when you were giving your report, Steve, is when you say we have a very low caseload, we have a lower, I shouldn't say very low, a lower caseload, and we don't have the data to show, in reference to each individual assistant public defender's case processing and their corresponding caseload in terms of what comes in and what is going out. Are we able to justify the additional position? I mean, just because we add another judge, if the cases are still the same across the board, but now they're distributed across a different number, does that apply similarly to the lawyers? If their caseload is going down, are we able to justify the additional body that we're requesting at a cost of $81,000?
So I mean, I think we'll be able to, just because of the sheer number of courtrooms that we do cover. Right now, we cover basically 10 courtrooms. That's the 7 judges, referee Ingalls 8, and the 2 magistrate judges. Judge Kwan has court every day. Judge Sison has court a couple days a week. So just to be able to cover it, if with an 8th judge, it'll be 11 courtrooms. And so there really isn't much That would be 17 attorneys for 11 courtrooms. So, you know,
But
just to
I
make sure
don't
there's some overlap.
I don't necessarily know if that correlates. I mean, we would have three, correct me, PJ, we would have three civil jurisdiction dockets, and is it 4 criminal jurisdiction dockets? So I don't know necessarily the PD covers the civil jurisdiction dockets. They will handle no criminal cases.
That's true. So we basically have a juvenile unit that handles the cases that are currently assigned to Judge Gutierrez, Judge EMI, and Judge Barcenas. And then the other attorneys are just wrapping up the existing criminal cases that each of those judges have. So going forward, once they basically resolve all their criminal cases, then they will just be handling all the juvenile matters, the PINS cases, and the protective orders. And then we'll give them a small caseload in a different courtroom. So it's really more of a coverage issue than a caseload issue.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that I don't see how it correlates if the public defender doesn't handle civil cases, and we have 3 judges. Is it 3 or 4, PJ, that handles exclusively civil cases?
3, TJ.
3. Why would we have a PD assigned to a judge that handles no criminal case?
So those 3 actually still handle juvenile cases. So basically, the 3 civil judges handle all the juvenile cases as well as referee Ingalls. So there's 4 different courtrooms that we have juvenile hearing. We have to cover juvenile hearings at. But granted, it is a small part of their caseload. So, but
I
you're
just
absolutely.
I want to make sure, Steve. I mean, if you can't convince the board, you know, it's going to be a hard sell to convince the senator. So let's make sure that what we're requesting, we're able to defend, support, and have a rationale for it. Right now, the way I'm hearing it, it may not necessarily justify based on the data, based on the dockets, that how we're equating it. I think if we now look at the data differently and look at the caseload of each lawyer, the backlog, you know, the processing of the cases, maybe we can come up with the reason that the additional lawyer, we can't just say we need a lawyer because there's going to be an 8th judge. You know, you can have coverage in various ways by doing that.
Yes, and part of the goal, Your Honor, is to, I mean, right now our caseloads are at historic levels. When the historically low levels, when the moratorium was first imposed, they were at, you know, pretty high levels. And so I think we're getting our office in a position where we could lift in part the moratorium. Not like completely as it was in the past, but like, for example, when there's a protective order and we represent a criminal defendant in a related criminal matter, that maybe we could handle the defending the protective order, or if there's a domestic case arising out of it. But that's something that, you know, I mean, if basically we're statutorily mandated to provide civil legal work to indigents, and if our office is in a position where we can provide a limited service, then you know, maybe we could try to look at that in the future.
Also, I think the consideration is that the judiciary is going to be adding another high-capacity courtroom starting next week. And so there's going to be another courtroom available for felony criminal jury trials that the PJ will have available for the trial judges. And then we're working on an 8th courtroom and high capacity again. And so to try and continue to chip away at the backlog, maybe there can be more of a correlation in that regard rather than just say because, you know, there's an 8th judge, we need another lawyer. I think we need to have a better basis to request. I very much want to support if the data suggests that we need the additional body. But I think we need a better supporting information to make the case so that that is a better sell in reference to asking for more money under these circumstances. Kathy?
Your Honor, may I add also is that when we do defend our budget, we also say that we allow our attorneys 2 days in the office to meet with clients or go to jail. We allow jail dates and appointment dates so that they're just not in the courtroom. It allows them time to meet clients, which we've often gotten criticized in the past. So now we have appointment dates for the attorneys. So we have that cycle going on. We also have done more trial than we have in the past. And we've tracked those numbers when we present to the legislature that our attorneys are taking more cases to trial. So that's another reason why we would probably need that additional attorney should there be an 8th judge, so that we still have in-house appointments that either they're here or they're at the jail, or that our cases are more of quality rather than quantity, and we're able to say that we're going to trial.
Great. I mean, that, that data that you can add to the data that you present to the board in terms of how many cases are going to trial compared and are expected more cases in reference to as the judiciary obtains more courtrooms to handle these felony criminal jury trials, then that's a further reason why there may be need for an additional body. I just think that the way it's presented right now seems to not be persuasive that the additional 81,000 increase of 17% compared to last year is needed under these austere times. So we just need to have a better story.
No, that we definitely understand that. And we also didn't reflect the amount of work that we've spent on the quarantine cases. I mean, Mr. Morrison could talk about that, but I know that he spent tons of hours on that. So, but we just have to collect that data and we'll present it to the legislature as well. And I mean, hopefully we can get the CARES Act funding to pay for that, because it is a CARES Act related expense. We've never really tried to bill anybody for it.
Does anyone have any questions for our for Steve or Kathy in reference to the increase? Right now, the bulk of it is as personnel as we can see, and it's really that one additional attorney position and the corresponding increase from that adding the additional FTE.
Maybe in the presentation on the salaries, Steve or Kathy, maybe you should distinguish between the salary of your new attorney request and the mandated salary and benefits, so that it won't be confused by the legislature, that they're all wrapped into one. Huh?
Yeah, we'll include that. That's our complete packet. We'll make sure to include that.
Because I wanted separated, because when I first saw that, I thought that all that was for the attorney and his or her staff. Huh? So that let's just do that one is mandated by law, and we're just asking the additional request to fulfill that mandate, and the other one is to fill a new position if it's passed, if it's approved by the legislature. Just for clarification, because sometimes when they start cutting, sometimes they don't really look into it. They just say, oh, this is all for that new position, cut it out. Huh? But if we can separate it so that if they do make the cuts, and if we don't justify it like the CJ just mentioned, and it's cut by the legislature, we don't cut out the necessary mandated portions of that request.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, yeah.
We'll do that.
And sometimes the staff will cut it out, thinking that it's for the new attorney position. But if we can separate it from that, it will probably save at least some portion of that request.
Will do. Thank you.
So with the additional revenue from the prior year lapses adding to the general fund revenue, the general fund revenue for FY22 being requested and as compared to FY 2021, what's the percentage of increase, Kathy?
The total percentage increase is 9%. That's on page 22.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that. That's what I thought. Okay. I mean,
9%.
that's a lot more reasonable when you're sitting on the other side than 17%, you know, under pandemic conditions. So I think that's well within a organic growth type increase, with the exception of that. But that one position is substantially absorbed by the lapses going forward that's available to the PD to use for the FY22 operations. Anything else you want to highlight in reference to the FY 2022 budget?
Everything else basically are fixed expenses. We did, and we're going to continue to do this. We included an amount for training, which, you know, has helped us when we're short. We've included under miscellaneous, we included 26,000 for training. And then we also included under contractual money for witness, expert witness if we had to. So if we had to cut, we know that those are amounts that we can cut. Expert witness under contractual, it's the second bullet at the bottom. So those are just two amounts that we've included in our budget, and we would really, like we're short this fiscal year, we can use the expert witness and the training. And so those are always taking a back seat to what we really need should we be short.
So those seemingly are like reserve funds in the event that other categories are underfunded. And
yes, but Your Honor,
in reference to training, I know that there's no, I don't know if you have any set plans, but is there any, what is the general plan going forward should that amount be appropriate? Yeah.
So I would say we've had like 30 hours of CLE training in the last year during the pandemic. We actually joined the National Association of Public Defenders, and they have like hours upon hours of available CLE. And so they just had a conference that had like 60 sessions. It cost $50. Those are going to be uploaded to their website, and then we'll be able to conduct our own in-house training. We've done that. We've invited APD as well as the private attorney panel, and then we've asked the Guam Bar to authorize it as CLE. So we've gotten there were like 6,000 public defenders nationwide that attended this 3-day conference, and so they had a lot of good seminars that we're going to be able to share with our attorneys, and as well as our investigators and our social worker. So I really don't think, you know, we're not really going to be sending people off island. I think unless there's some specialty treatment court type training that is not available. But as far as criminal defense, I don't really foresee any travel other than maybe we might want to send someone to the appellate defender training in Louisiana, which is, you know, that's very useful from what I understand. But other than that, I don't think there's any we have plans on sending anyone to training.
But Your Honor,
those are very good plans, Steve. Also, just and you'll get more information as we approach. But within the fiscal year, also PJC is planning to do another training with the American College of Trial Lawyers, which is totally trial practice presentation, similar to the ones we did in Saipan 2 years ago. I think, Jackie, you may have been there. And so we're going to do that in March of 2022, where the fellows again will come out and do certain aspects of trial practice. And so that will be here in Guam. The plan is to have it here in Guam. Okay, and so we may be able to take advantage of that both in person and virtually. I'm sorry, Kathy, I cut you off.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Your Honor, but what we've also done in the past, and we would like to do this, and we brought it to the board, is we brought out a trial lawyer, and I know you folks are all familiar with the name Lori Shanks and her husband who've done, and then they brought in an investigator. So rather than us send folks off island, we bring the trainers to Guam, and we get our attorneys from both public defender and APD at the training, and then we also open it up to the private attorney panel if they should wish to join us with this training, so we get more folks in a concentrated area. I'm sure it's different with the pandemic, but that's what we've done in the past, and that's why we've set aside the money really for that ideally.
Yeah, she's excellent. She presented for PJC. I think that was her first time out, and then since then, I'm glad to hear we've been able to capitalize, on her skills in helping train our trial lawyers. Any other questions, comments for the public defender?
Just for clarification, Steve and Kathy, the expert witnesses, are those paid by the courts, or are these other types of expert witnesses that you utilize out of the courtroom? Because I know when you do contest a psychological evaluation, the court will appoint another psychologist or psychiatrist to come up with the evaluation, and that's what the court pays. So what is this 22,500 involved?
Those would be for other experts that sometimes we file motions for experts and they're denied. So and usually happens in DNA type cases, and so we really need an expert to help advise the attorney as well as maybe testify regarding those. It's really would be limited to high and DNA type cases. And so, yes, that's correct. Sometimes the court, if they deny it, then, we would ask the board to let us foot the bill for an expert. So that's something we would have to probably ask the board on a case-by-case basis to authorize it.
Okay, so how often did we use it last year or this year?
Well, no, we didn't. We haven't used because they underfunded us. That was one of the things we kind of cut.
So you're saying that if the legislature decides to cut, they'll say, "What do you want cut?" You'll say, "Cut that," right? So it's sacrificial.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, I see the point, huh?
But we
Because
never
usually the court will pay for 80% of those expert witnesses. So,
Your Honor, we never offer to cut anything. We say we need everything, so we don't offer anything to cut.
well, that's nice to say, but you don't want to give them the opportunity to cut things you really don't want to cut. You know what I mean?
Correct.
It's better that you choose the cuts and they do it, huh?
Correct.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, that's the only question I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Is there anything else? Now, I noted, Kathy, that we didn't have a resolution. So is this for information and we're going to act on it at the next board meeting?
I have a resolution and JT has it on PDF and he can bring it up. But just in case you folks didn't, the board didn't approve our budget, I normally give it afterwards, just in case there are any alterations with our budget or that of APD, we send it in afterwards.
What's the deadline for the?
We don't have a deadline. I actually spoke with Senator San Augustine's office yesterday to see when we might need to turn in our budget. They think third week of April, but we normally get an official letter from Joe San Augustine's office, Senator San Augustine. We just know that we needed to bring it to this board meeting. Otherwise, if we wait for April, we're really cutting it tight. And should they need to have it like the day before we're meeting the board, we don't want to put the board under this undue stress. That's why we always try to bring it in the March meeting.
All right.
Yeah, historically, it's due the same time the judiciary budget is due, but we haven't received anything.
The judiciary's is due on May 1st, and that's by statute.
Okay.
So we haven't gotten the official notification, but we would assume that if yours is on May 1st, ours may be on May 1st.
Yeah, and normally, like Senator San Augustine last year asked us to try and submit it earlier, but we submitted it by May 1st. And it's a Saturday. May 1st is a Saturday. But, the judiciary is our schedule is that we would act on this on the April board meeting and then transmit it by the end of the end of the month. But you know, the trustees meeting, the public defenders board meeting is the last Tuesday of the month, so that might be cutting it close. And so, I mean, if there are no objection, no questions, and the council feels comfortable with the 9% organic increase, pretty much, except for that one position, then and if the judiciary decides that it's not going to request funding for the 8th position, then you know, if that's the only rationale for including this position, then we just need, then we take it out. But if there are other reasons to request a position based on data that you're able to provide, as Kathy has alluded to, then you know, we include it. Does anyone feel that they would like more time to review the budget? So JT, why don't you? Do we have both budgets in one resolution, Kathy?
Correct.
Or
Correct.
all right,
We have both on one resolution.
all right. Let's wait until the alternative public defender presents its budget, then we can put the resolution up for the consideration of the board. So there are no other questions for Mr. Attore and Kathy. Then we'll move to the alternative public defender's budget request, and I will recognize Annie Maria Gale.
Hi, Your Honor.
Going to assist you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Might be easier to go to page 46 of the board packet. 46 and 47 has the budget summary. Yes, that's correct. So bottom line is we are asking for overall increase of 6%. And that's basically from the mandated salary increments as well as benefits. We did, one of the things that the pandemic has forced everybody to do is to increase our overall capability of online services as well as phone capabilities. And so what we've done is we did upgrade our phones. We hadn't upgraded our phones since we started with APD, and the contract for our last vendor was up. So and our current vendor offered us phones as well as internet and fiber optic capability. So that is what we've done. And so if you look on page 47, there it is, the telephone service and maintenance upgrade, which is, and then also the fiber optic. Everything there is a little bit more expensive. Everything's gotten more expensive, but we have been able to utilize the services of our vendor to get those increases. So we don't have any new positions. We're not adding any new positions. We're just maintaining our budget. Just the increase would be the organic increase, Your Honor. But I do have, and then if you go back to page 26, it does show the full budget request. There you go. And it does show the different levels of the fiscal year 2020, the appropriated level, the actual level, and then the proposed. I'd like to take your, I would like to point out something under number 250, which is the equipment. If you notice that there's the 2020 actual level of 24,276, I'd like to request, what happened is at the end of fiscal year 2020, we encumbered computers for the office worth about $21,000. And we encumbered it for the 2020 fiscal year, but we did not receive them until the new fiscal year started. And that was because of different reasons. We encumbered it, but they couldn't deliver it. We couldn't actually get them to the office because we needed a bonding company. For whatever reason, we couldn't get them and couldn't get invoiced until 2021. So what I actually would like to ask if we could use 2020 funds to pay for the 2021 delivered items. I bring that to your attention because right now, I mean, it's my understanding that we actually do have lapses, and so I want to be able to use the lapses for those computers. Is that possible?
It just depends on what's provided in the statute. If there's a continuing appropriation of lapse funds to the next fiscal year. If you did not, and you know, you have to consult with your finance officer. But if you encumbered it by signing or invoicing, and it just wasn't delivered and wasn't paid until the following fiscal year, then you properly encumbered it. The funds, it's just that it wasn't paid out into the next fiscal year. However, if it wasn't invoiced, you didn't have a contract, you didn't have a purchase order, and those funds lapse, and you don't have a continuing appropriation of your using prior year lapses for following year expenditures, then there's an issue there. But that was going to be my question. You know, APD, my public defender, had the full use of the lapse funds, I assume, from both entities to add to his expenditure for FY 2022. Is any of that available to APD for this type of expense that Annie is talking about?
Right, they just need to, I think the board just needs to approve the use of those lapse funds because it was a 2020 purchase, but it wasn't affected until after FY 2021. So that would just need a motion, right? To
well, let me try and clarify. For example, the judiciary. The judiciary has in the statute under the miscellaneous provisions that any lapses from prior fiscal year continues to be appropriated for our expenditures in the next fiscal year. That allows us, so the money doesn't revert back to the general fund. Absent that language, money not expended in the current fiscal year without continuing appropriation language to the next fiscal year lapses to the general fund in general. So I don't know what the PD's budget limitations are provided in the Budget Act as to whether or not lapses continue to be available for subsequent year expenses. If it doesn't exist and their lapses are not authorized, then it reverts to the general fund. If it does exist, the lapses have been appropriated for expenses in the subsequent fiscal year, then you have the money available, and you're right that the board can then just authorize that expense.
Yes,
but
we do have.
Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
We do have a law that for continuing appropriation, so our lapse funds do not revert to general fund.
Okay, good.
Okay, but if I may, Chief, I got confused in this discussion because we're talking about lapse funds, but I thought I heard that the purchase order was completed in the correct fiscal year. And did I hear that incorrectly?
Yeah, she said They weren't able to invoice it, is what I understood.
Right, we did the purchase order in fiscal year 2020, but it wasn't able to be delivered. The products were not delivered and invoiced and paid for until 2021. So if we did the purchase order for September fiscal year 2020, they didn't get delivered due to pandemic reasons, blah, 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 till November 2021. November 2020, that cuts into to fiscal year 2021. Do you see?
Yeah, but then on the way you've described it, you've properly encumbered the fund.
Yeah, in 2020.
You just did, and you know, when you close out your books, you aren't able to close out your books until you actually expend that and account for it in the current fiscal year.
Right.
So under that description, Annie, you've encumbered the funds, and so it is not a expense in FY 2021. It's an expense in FY 2020.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Maybe, Mr. Chairman, we can have Steve and Annie look into that, and then they can request a resolution to have the board approve it, huh?
I will. Thank you, Your Honor.
For the next hearing, because right now we don't really know. We still have lapses from 2020.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So in reference to just the budget request of the APD, which is a 6% increase compared to the last fiscal year, and as explained, it's mostly for the organic increases built in required by statute. Are there any other comments, questions before we move to the next step of this process? There being none, so JT, if you could put up the resolution seeking action on the part of the board approving these budget requests.
Got it, I got it. That's it, right? Okay. And great. Right. Can everyone see the resolution?
Yes, yes, JT, we do see it. I do see it. So the resolution number PDSC 04-21, the resolve clause is in line with the budget presentation of both the Public Defender Service Corporation and the Alternative Public Defender's Office. And it is seeking approval on the part of the board for the budget request as presented. And so for purposes of discussion, is there a motion to adopt the resolution approving the budget presentation?
I'll move, Your Honor, to approve the budget for both PDSC and as under the form.
Okay, it's been moved by Attorney Ekubi as presented. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
It's been seconded by the presiding judge. I think we've had sufficient discussion in terms of the presentation. I'd like to call for the vote. And so all those in favor of adopting resolution number PDSC 04-21, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? it's been unanimously adopted. And so the budget proposals of the public defender and the APD are approved, and you can take the steps to present that to the legislature for action. And we'll just hope for the best in that those amounts are approved. Okay, board members, we have no matters under executive session. Anything under public discussion? JT, do we have a do we have a camera, laptop available in the lobby of the public defender's office? I don't see it on our screen, but if there is no member of the public that wishes to make any comment, then we have completed our agenda items, board members. I note that the next meeting is on April 27th at 12:30 p.m. And JT, if you could send me a new invite so I can update my calendar, I appreciate it.
Move to adjourn to April 27th at 12:30, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Being there being no objection, the board meeting is duly adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time and your presentation.